Up 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, chapter 30A, section 18, and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Southborough Housing Opportunity Partnership Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Southborough's website at www.southboroughtown.com. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting or participate may do so in the following manner: www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive records of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Good morning, everybody. And they're still not here. I hate reading that thing. Good morning, good morning. Okay, I guess we can start. Let's see. Should we do the minutes first and get them out of the way?
I make a motion to accept the minutes from September 24th, August 27th, September 24th, and October 6th as written.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion, any questions, changes, comments on any of them? Okay, this will be a roll call vote for acceptance. I'll read you as I see you on my screen. John Wood?
John Wood, aye.
Alex?
Aye.
Chelsea?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
And Dorian is aye. So, okay, minutes are done. That was easy. Okay, God, where are those guys? All right. Hpp Implementation Planning. So we had a discussion at the last meeting about possibilities of going forward. We talked 40B, we talked 40R. I know there's a density issue with the 40R vehicle for housing. I'm not really sure what to do with that. We were going to try to do a joint meeting with planning and discuss some of those issues with him. Here's our 40R expert. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
So we can discuss that a little bit more with Tom since he understands that, but we should probably consider sitting down and meeting with the planning committee about it and get their take on what their perspective is.
Oh, are we talking about the downtown?
Yeah.
Initiative? Yeah, good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, because the 40R is more of a density issue versus the 40B. So regardless, we need to figure out a way to get some affordable housing in town.
Well,
And our biggest hurdle, as we discussed the last meeting, is getting the money into the Housing Authority Trust Fund. So,
So Dorian, can I jump in and give an update?
Absolutely.
On the research that I've done on the trust fund. So last week I had gone through how other towns do it in their warrant articles. And I'd actually sent a bunch of links to Sarah just to kind of give her a heads up on how other towns are doing it. And then I went back through Southborough's annual town warrants. And in 2009 and 2011, at least, we had included in our warrant were articles to transfer money for housing from CPC to the trust without a specific project. So we have actually already done that, at least in 2 years that I could find. I didn't go through all the warrants. And this was prior to me being in town. So I just went back to before we were here. And so it does look like that we have historically done that. So I want to get with Carla, our new town accountant, and potentially CPC to understand the process that occurred in those years. And it seemed like is going down the path that you had presented last week, Dorian, where the money's moved over to the trust and doesn't have a specific project tied to it. So I don't think we're reinventing the wheel. I think we're just reinvigorating what we had done about 10 years ago. So I think I probably have some more legwork to do, but I just wanted to give you an update that it actually looks like we have done it.
The few towns
Now,
that
Chelsea,
Yep.
Chelsea, when you did your research, did they do it on a yearly basis? The towns, I think like a Holliston does it on a yearly basis.
They did. Yeah. So actually Yarmouth and Chatham were two good ones that do it on a yearly basis. And a few kind of flip between the housing authority and then the trust. I think Sudbury did that. But I have a list of the towns that I looked at that I can have, that Sarah, you can feel free to send it out to the committee if you want.
Absolutely. I can send it out to everybody.
The
Okay,
ones-
I know one of the CPC meetings, I believe it was last year. So this will be my third year I'm on as the representative for Shopsy. And there was a discussion at one of the meetings that the money had been allotted to the housing authority, but they had never requested a transfer. And so this was discussed at the meeting that there's money in yet another bucket with CPC that's supposed to have been transferred to the housing authority that hasn't been. It's still sitting there. Where that money is, I have no idea because they didn't really get into detail. And I think it was probably 2 years ago. I had just joined and that
Okay.
information came out. So that's something we really need to research because the town has been putting money into housing since the CPC started. And where is that money? We literally should have two different buckets then. One that the money was already allotted to, and it should be in an escrow somewhere collecting interest since it hasn't been transferred. And then there's the money that's been piling up in a bucket. Again, we have no clue how much money there is. So that's something we need to sit down with Carla and find out because we're not getting a response from the CPC. So, and I have no idea where the money is because I haven't been involved in it.
Okay.
Alex.
Lynn is incredibly good and on top of going for funds from the state. So I'm wondering if we should let her know. She may not know it's there and she might be able to help. She's the administrator of the housing authority.
Oh, I missed the beginning part of your statement. Sorry, Alex.
Lynn is incredibly good at going after funds. I don't know where she comes up with it, but she's incredibly good at it.
Who's Lynn? I don't know who Lynn is.
Lynn Morrow, she's the administrator of the housing authority.
So I think though we're talking about getting the money into the trust, not the housing authority, right?
Right, the housing, yeah, the housing
Yes.
authority trust is where the money has to
Right.
go. It doesn't go right to the housing.
Well, then she probably wouldn't be involved. Okay.
Right. So the trust is the 5 members of the Board of Selectmen, Dorian and Bill Boland. So, so I'm happy to work with Carla, Dorian, on kind of identifying what the situation is with the bucketing. And I believe that the trust right now has $70,000 in it. And Sarah, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But I believe that's what I heard last week.
Yes, that's the last number that I heard. I will admit that I haven't seen actual, any paper ledger, but yes, that's my understanding as well.
Okay.
So there was 94,000 in there. Where did the other $24,000 go? Was part of that was for our housing production plan,
Mhm.
which was
18,000 was it?
Yep. So Stockwell is back under the town's control. So there's been some expenses with utility
Okay.
Stockwell. And we're actually working on getting Stockwell back up on the market. We're hoping to meet with the realtor within the next week or so. So it seems like we have legally everything in line. So we're hopefully going to get that moving and get it on the market fairly soon.
Perfect. Thank you. That will be awesome. All right. So Chelsea, if you don't mind, if you could meet with Carla
Mhm.
and if you can get some answers about how much money's in the housing bucket
Yeah.
Where's the money that was supposed to get transferred that's not transferred? So it's sitting somewhere. I don't know where it is, but we need to find it. Because I do remember the conversation that it wasn't requested to be transferred, so it wasn't transferred yet. So it has to be somewhere. And
So
if you wouldn't mind doing that. So,
and I think the good thing about that is if it's already been appropriated at town meeting, then if something were to come up and there's money sitting there, then we wouldn't have to reappropriate from town meeting. So I think if we can move forward with kind of getting a plan together on items that we think are viable, then it sounds like there are funds available. So I can get the details around how much is available, and then we can determine if that is an appropriate amount to be able to do something with.
all right, well, if you could get that information to Sarah, and Sarah, if you could then disperse that to the members of this board, so at least we all have the same knowledge for, to go into our next meeting, that would be great.
Yes.
Perfect. John?
So if we have like a couple of hundred, I'm just guessing. So say from past monies from CPC that we haven't taken, we have a couple $100,000 in that bucket. Can we get that out before town meeting, or do we have to, like the other towns that I've looked at prior to today, all they had for verbiage on their warrants was for affordable housing under releasing the funds. Could we release at the next town meeting all back monies that are in for housing to our account, or do we only get what's allowed per year?
So the way the 2009 and 2011 Southborough warrants were written, or articles were written, was that this money was appropriated to the trust for affordable housing in this current year and in future years. So you can use it. It can carry over every year. So that's why I think Dorian's saying it's sitting there. We just haven't transferred it into the trust.
So it could be from all past years that could be available to us.
Just those 2 years.
Just those. Well, I don't know if there's other years. That's what I'll find out with Carla. Is it that other
Yes.
that have appropriated money? But then if you're talking about so there's also an annual warrant article that has the 4 buckets for CPC.
Correct.
Right?
I'm talking about those buckets as well.
Yeah.
So I think that that would be a conversation that we would need to have with CPC. Once we kind of get all this money organized, we see what's in each bucket, and then we come up with what our plan is, then I think we can then sit down with CPC, explain this is what our plan is, and then we can figure out how much it makes sense to transfer over. Because from what I understand, another group, like for example, Habitat for Humanity, could go to CPC and say, we have a project we'd like to do in Southborough, and do the application through CPC rather than relying on the trust, which they could also go through the trust. But I think we just need to be careful that we make sure we transfer what's appropriate to transfer into the trust, and then work with CPC on how much should sit in CPC and be appropriated at town meeting.
That's interesting, that statement about the Habitat doing it to the CPC. I never even thought of that. So they could, and what John was saying is we really can't drain it every year, I guess.
Right. I don't think that's the intent
No.
of CPC is,
Yeah.
I
We
guess
don't want to drain it. We don't want to drain it, but we need money. So
Yes.
part of the problem and the challenge that we're all facing is we have no monetary ability to do anything. So we can sit here and spin our wheels. We could have the most perfect piece of property, the most perfect project, and we can't do anything because we have zero funding available to us. We have not, well, we have some now, we have a little bit when we sell stock. Well, again, that's not going to be enough to do anything. So say a piece of property, like we found somebody wants to sell us an acre to do affordable housing, and we buy it and we bring in Habitat to help do. We can't do anything. So that's why this step is very necessary in order to untie our hands.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Hopefully.
otherwise we're just wasting our time. We can't do anything. And that's the biggest hurdle I think this committee has, is the money. We can't do, our hands are totally tied. So Chelsea, if you wouldn't mind doing that for us, that would be a huge help. And then we can discuss going forward. In the meantime, if anybody knows anyone in town who has, a house that, not $1 million home, because we're not going to do that. But, you know, an older person who's looking to sell their house or sell some land or to do something that we could possibly do a project on, working with Habitat or the Massachusetts Housing Partnership or some other group. Just keep your ears open.
A great little house on Central Street just sold for $345. Nice yard right next to Fayetteville Hall. It was on the market, I think, 7 days. That's why I'm shocked that we haven't got rid of Stockwell yet, because as soon as that hits the market, it should be gone, because people are eating up the smaller houses in town. They're going so quick. So it's tough to find the lower priced houses. So it'd be great once we have some money to be able to at least be competitive in these things, because
They go in 3 days.
yeah.
Yeah, I would just like us to be able to actually accomplish something and have that feel good, you know, that we've actually helped a family that desperately needs a home and that we've done something. And that is my goal.
Absolutely.
I just want to help somebody. So
Momentum.
Chelsea, thank you so much for doing all that legwork for us. Really appreciate it. And if you could follow up and then get the information to Sarah, and then Sarah will disperse it to us, and then we can all take a look at it and have a discussion at our next meeting.
And I'll wrap in the information that you sent originally to Chelsea. So it's
Okay.
all kind of packaged together.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so this now kind of rolls into the next subject, the technical assistance contract. So I had called Sarah, a couple of weeks ago, Sarah, and suggested, after looking at the HPP, I don't know if you guys have your HPP in front of you, but if you go to the back page, there's the last 2 pages, there's an appendix with the priority action checklist.
I can share it. Let me see.
Okay. If
Real
you look
quick,
at
just so that-
appendix 2, it's developing a 5-year strategic plan to facilitate the funding.
Okay, there we go. Can everybody see?
Yep.
Okay. So we're talking about appendix 2. So these are our priority actions that COG identified, throughout the HPP process. And so really, the warrant article and the discussion regarding moving CPA funds over to the Affordable Housing Trust is really action item number 2. So what we're trying to do is have, COG, re-engage with us, on a, small contract basis to to have them to implement this strategy.
So wanted to have a discussion with the board. What are your thoughts on doing that? So I was thinking, and now, so Chelsea, I didn't realize you were doing the legwork on looking at other contracts from other towns like Yarmouth and Chatham and Holliston and seeing what they had done. Since we had hired COG to do our HPP, and that is where their expertise is, I was thinking of possibly contracting with them, up to, but not to exceed, say, $5,000. And I doubt it would cost that much, but to have them help us write and help us implement a warrant article for the town in order to help us transfer the funds on an annual basis, and maybe not even an annual basis, or whatever we decide. It's not my decision, it's this board's decision, to try to help us to get this so it's going to pass at town meeting, and that, again, we can help people. We have the funds and the means to be able to actually do something for a family or more than one family, that we can help them make a better life for themselves. So I'd like to just hear you guys, what you guys are thinking on that. I just kind of came up with that was a means to an end. What I don't want to do, Chelsea, is overload you with writing a warrant article and doing all this work. I mean, you have so much on your plate, so I don't want to overburden you and ask you to do that. So that's why I was thinking Courtney is a delight to work with. She's very knowledgeable. I find them to be very reasonable with their pricing. Sarah and I were discussing this earlier. We think it'll probably be around $2,000. It's not going to be a lot of money, and it'll get done, and it'll take the burden off of, like Chelsea, who's doing all this other research, and frees up her time. What do you guys think? I just put that out there. What do you guys think?
So can I just ask a question?
Yes.
So when I looked at the Southborough warrant article, I thought it was pretty straightforward. So are we asking this company to write our warrant article, or to figure out how much makes sense to transfer into the trust? Or can you kind of give some background on exactly what we would be asking them and getting from them?
What would be all of the above? So how much, like, they would have more of a history of other towns. And you've been doing some of the research, which I wasn't aware you were doing. So, which I greatly appreciate. That's wonderful. But they work throughout the whole state. So they really, to me, they have a really good handle on what other towns have done, the success rate, what works, what doesn't work. They would have a better idea of what we really need to work for projects, how we would implement a project, who we would go to get a project accomplished. They just have more history and more experience in this area than I think any of us do. And I might be wrong, but this is where I was thinking. That's why I wanted to ask them again. I mean, they were so knowledgeable, and they did such a great job on this HPP for us. I just thought reaching out to them and asking them to do some of this work for us would just make it a little bit easier. And the chances of getting it passed at town meeting, since they have the experience, and they could even come and present it, I guess, for us if we wanted them to. That's just my thought. And I might be totally wrong, Chelsea. Again, this is a board. It's all up to all of us. It's just an idea I came up with. I discussed it with Sarah. She thought it was a good idea. So that's why we're bringing it up to you guys today to see what you thought. You guys can disagree and say, no, Dorian, that's a really bad idea. And I say, okay, what's our next idea? So this is a board decision. This is not a me decision. So we need to discuss it and vote on this and with everybody's input.
So just to interject, I did have an opportunity to have a call with Roberta and Courtney to discuss, what the board really intended on trying to do moving forward in terms of action items for the HPP. And, one thing that we have been talking about is developing, stronger warrant article language, whether it be supplemental to what, has been used in the past in Southborough, or, a new warrant article. And so, they were a little unclear as to what I was asking for. So we had a conversation, and really, again, what came out of it was a lot of the procedural questions about how the town is moving the money from one bucket to the next. A 5-year, this particular bullet point, says work with the Affordable Housing Trust to develop a 5-year strategic plan. So they did bring that back kind of to the table in our discussion, talking about the fact that the Affordable Housing Trust should really have an independent document that is considered the 5-year strategic plan, in addition to the HPP, kind of as, a supplement or kind of a, a sister document to support, where those funds would be going. Because I think, their kind of feedback was in terms of, approval at town meeting. Obviously, people want to know, where is the money going to be going? And so, kind of having a more strategic plan, for shifting those funds into the Affordable Housing Trust. Also, they would be able to, throughout this contract, explain, exactly, how each pool of money can be used, for what purposes. I know that, Lisa remembered, and Chelsea, you were there at that meeting when we were talking about getting Stockwell on the market, a conversation, and I don't know if anyone else on the board remembers this, when they came to present for the HPP, we did kind of get off on a tangent about the different requirements and how monies can be spent, CPA, affordable monies versus, affordable housing trust monies. And so we had some preliminary discussion with them so they can really do a deep dive into, how that is all supposed to work procedurally, which I know would help me personally if they were on board to support, this effort.
The other thing, I believe, and somebody can correct me, this would not be a SHOPC warrant article. This would actually be a BOS article on behalf of the Housing Authority. This would not be a SHOPC article, correct? It has to be presented from the BOS.
So, go ahead.
I think it's a CPC article to move the money to the trust.
On an annual, but if it's on an annual basis, and I know we have to go to CPC, and I know we have to do the grant and make all that happen, but if it's on an annual basis, doesn't it have to come from the BOS?
Nope.
It does come from CPC. Okay.
Yeah, let me just double check the 2009. I'm pretty sure it's CPC because it's there. So the trust would do the application for CPC to request the money, and then CPC would review it and make a recommendation to town meeting and bring the article.
Okay, I thought that the BOS had to do it because it would be an annual thing and we would not be going to the CPC every year. It would be a permanent one. So that's why I thought it was the BOS. See, I don't know everything. Okay, so it's CPC, so that's good.
So Dorian, going back to one of your questions earlier, is this worthwhile? I have to say yes, because there's some unknowns. And again, they have the reach of the whole Commonwealth of different towns, how they're doing this stuff. And Southborough could be unique. And Chelsea, nothing against what you've been doing, but like Dorian says, you have other roles and responsibilities. I think it'd be worth the money to have COGS do that action item number 2.
Alex or Tom, anything?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on board with it as well. And I've sort of thought COG would be good for some other things we've been talking about. We've been talking about, trying to get some changes to the zoning bylaws to make affordable housing, facilitate affordable housing and remove some of the barriers. And maybe even, depending on how we come out on this on the macro level, some other provisions in our zoning to incentivize the creation of affordable housing. So I've always thought COG would might be a good consultant for that purpose as well. And I sort of think, on a macro level, and I'm on board with everything, getting these funds and having them available so that when we have a project, we don't have to go through 6 months of applying to the town meeting and getting appropriations and everything else. Let's have those funds available to be used for the purposes for which they were appropriated. But I also think on a more macro level, it's one thing to be able to get these funds and, have a project like Stockwell where we can, create one unit of affordable housing versus zone. I know we're going to talk about the downtown zoning initiative right now, but those are the projects where that zoning initiative could be the creation of 30 or 40 units of housing. Those are really the opportunities where if we can get 10 or 20% of that housing to be affordable, now we're talking about getting 6, 7, 8 units of housing as part of a zoning initiative like that. Those are bigger chunks of affordable housing we can establish through zoning as well. So so long way of saying I'm on board, but I also think that we should think about using COG for other purposes as well.
I'll second that. I mean, anything that works, but I think when all is said and done, with all of the towns around Boston, it's the zoning that's sometimes the biggest obstacle.
Yeah, I just don't, I mean, Chelsea, I'm very grateful that you've done all that research. What I don't want to do is overburden you. You have so many hats on and you do so much already and you're just new to the board. I don't want you to get burnt out. So I don't want to put the onus on you. So if you feel differently or if you have something else to add here, I don't want to overburden you. And I'm very, very sensitive to that.
So I appreciate that. Thank you. So I think I just have I have a question and a comment. My question is, are we anticipating that this is going to be a yearly cost for them to do our annual warrant article? Or is this a one and done, they show us how to do it and we move on? Okay.
To me, it's one and done, right?
Okay.
Sarah, you can comment on that. To me, once they've written it, we just have to update dates and we may have to change an amount or do whatever, but it'd be extremely minor. They'd set the plate that we would just copy every year and go forward if that's how we have to do it. So,
okay.
but
Yes. Yeah, definitely for the warrant article stuff, it's kind of
One
a
and
one
done.
and done. And again, Courtney, who's, very vibrant, kind of made it like out to say like, well, what you need is sort of like a general technical assistance contract. So you can kind of get in some of the things that like the zoning article updates, those types of warrant articles, just kind of general technical assistance, but it wouldn't be kind of an ongoing cost. However, they would be there if we wanted to contract in the future, again, just for ongoing nitnoid technical assistance things to support, our team, here in the planning department, because we're small.
Okay. And my comment is, I think until we see what money has already been appropriated at town meeting, I'm not ready to say that we need to do a warrant article for this coming town meeting. I'd like to see the numbers and see what could be available. And I would be happy if COG could come up with a 5-year strategic plan that we could present to CPC and sit down with them and say, this is what our plan is. This is how we intend to use the money. So I think from that, I'm actually more on board with using COG from that perspective, because I think that's kind of what's missing in getting us to actually execute on utilizing the money.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. We need to, if we're going to ask for appropriation for the money, we have to show them what our plan is as why we need the money, why we need to be available.
Correct.
So we would do a contract, a technical assistance contract, and not really add the warrant article piece in yet, or say that's a possibility, but we're going to hold on that. But we at least need you to do a 5-year strategic plan to help us through.
Well, so that's why I asked the question if it's an annual thing, because if we're going to pay for a strategic plan, we might as well have them include a template for the warrant, so that even if we don't use it this year, that we can just update it for next year. So I would actually say if I don't want to go back, if we don't do a warrant article this year, I don't want to go back to them next year and get another contract to have them set up the warrant for us. So I'd rather just package it this year, get the strategic plan, and at some point in the next, after we see the data, then decide if we actually want to apply for an article at town meeting. Now, CPC hasn't been able to meet. We did appoint 2 new members to CPC on Tuesday night, so they do have enough for a quorum now. But I believe that their application cycle for town meeting ends in September. So once they can meet, I don't know how that's going to work with applications for town meeting.
Well, we haven't met since January. I think it was January we had our last meeting, so.
Yeah,
they're going to have to make some exceptions if that's the case, because they haven't met at all. So nobody was able to send in anything. So
right,
they'll have to make an exception.
So
I'll vote to do an exception.
But I thought they were extending their deadline, because I know the Trails Committee just submitted it, I think last week, to apply for some CPC funds.
Yeah, I think my point was that they hadn't voted extending it because they haven't been able to meet. So hopefully they'll be able to meet now and make a decision.
So just to be clear, it sounds like I've heard some evolution of what we may be asking COG to do and what we may be, looking to pay them to do it. If we're talking about a technical assistance contract for them to provide some support on how to get guided in the right direction to write a 5-year strategic plan, that's definitely a different cost than asking them to write a 5-year strategic plan.
But I think,
definitely.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The way Chelsea just outlined it, I think my takeaway from this conversation was that makes sense. It's almost the cart before the horse.
Yeah,
Like,
and
it seems to me like the 5-year plan is a necessary prerequisite to then going and asking for the funding mechanism from town meeting.
sure. So again, that's a little bit different. The procurement
Yeah.
procedure is going to be a little different than on that.
Can we get a bid on both?
That, contract would be in excess of $10,000 to write a 5-year strategic plan and to kind of loop in and work, alongside the Affordable Housing Trust in order to kind of get that, collaboratively executed. So, again, I can work on that, kind of RFP.
And Jen, I think what Chelsea just suggested is if we go that route, then the second thing is subsumed within the first thing. In other words, as part of their
Right, of course.
plan, they would.
Yeah, I mean, the technical assistance that we would have been looking for would be worked out through that process.
So you're thinking we need a larger contract up to $10,000 to do this?
I mean, to write a 5-year strategic plan, I mean, my guess is that, yes, it would be in excess of 10, I don't know. I just know that I know what we paid for the HPP, and the HPP, when we received, quotes back, we ended up going with COG, at, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think it was like roughly $18,000. And, we had quotes up to $21,000, $24,000. So again, I'd have to do, the conversation has changed so that the ask has changed in terms
It's
of
a bigger scope. I mean, I think
It's a larger scope.
What you said was $2,000 to have them just help us write a warrant article. But now, if it's a 5-year strategic plan, it's a much bigger project. That has the warrant article.
I really don't want to spend $10,000.
No, but let's just approach them and see what they come back with.
Yeah, let's see what the
They have
price
intimate-
is.
Right. They have intimate knowledge. I mean, they invested a lot of time and effort to interviewing different committees, different residents. They know this town probably pretty well. And
Thank
hopefully
you so much.
institutional knowledge that they did from the HPP to,
Hang on, John.
this.
Yep.
Yeah, I would agree. John, you want to say something?
Why don't we have them bid on both ways as writing the 5-year plan versus that? And then once we get the quote in, say the quote comes in at only an extra $1,000 for that way, then we know, okay, that's not bad. Or, wow, they're kind of high. We should send this out to other companies as well to see where it comes in the cheapest. Because I know initially when we put this bid out, we were leaning towards, for the HPP, we were leaning towards a company that had written it before. And I said, well, don't put a price on it. Just send it out blind. And we wound up getting a very good product. That's $6,000 less than the other people. That's just my cheapskate hat. I'm sorry, but.
Yeah, I mean, if it goes over 10,000, we have to put it out to bid anyway. Correct, Sarah? Isn't that the magic number, 10?
Yes. So, there is that threshold. So even if we, quite frankly, even if we anticipate that we could potentially receive bids for a, action item over $10,000, we should be following, a standard, RFP, OMB guidance,
Oh, absolutely. I want everything as transparent as can be. Absolutely follow the rules. I wanted to do that anyway, but they've done all this work. They've done all this legwork. They've done our HPP. They were easy to work with, very enjoyable. They did a great job.
And again, technical assistance, at a lower threshold, we just have to use sound business practices, and sound business practice would say if the company has a relationship with the community, that you would want to continue that relationship and deepen it. So, that wouldn't be a question. But if it is going to go over the 10, then we should just, kind of, get an RFP together and kind of send it out, and try to be impartial and non-biased about who we procure.
John?
Why don't we ask Courtney if there's any grant money available for this as well? There's a ton of grant money out there for lots of things, and part of their company, what they do is research grants and go after it, and you get the administrative. So say it costs you $2,000 for administrative fees, they go out after the grant, they win it, you get your $2,000 back. So we should ask if there's any grant money available for the writing of this housing implementation plan, because right now Governor Baker's really got a lot of money for the housing plans out there. So I think it's worth asking the question.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah, so again, you know, the general technical assistance that we were kind of talking about at the top of this call would cover all of these questions. You know, Courtney called it a Sherpa contract. You know, what you need is someone to sort of be able to answer your general questions, you know, and kind of point you in the right direction is really what, you know, was one of the key takeaways from my call with her. So, you know, in terms of general technical assistance, they could, you know, research some grants, you know, kind of come in, maybe take a look at some, you know, warrant language, take a look at some zoning language, you know, put us in the direction of the 5-year, you know, crafting that 5-year plan and then step away. Or we could have them come in, you know, provide, you know, the 5-year strategic plan, and then, you know, technical assistance kind of, you know, interspersed throughout that contract.
So can I just ask a question? With the plan that was done, was it always intended that there would need to be a 5-year strategic plan put together? Because I see that in bullet number or section number 2 here. So what was the plan of who was going to execute on that?
You know, again, it was kind of up to us, you know, Courtney and Roberta, as consultants, you know, made it clear that this was their scope of work, and that, you know, that would be, these are the next steps that they've laid out, you know, but it was up to, you know, the board and, you know, the community to kind of decide, you know, how to implement, where to implement, and who to contract those services with if necessary.
So I guess if the point of having money available is so that we can execute on something that comes in the market, I don't know if that, like, waiting for something to come on the market isn't necessarily driving your strategic plan. So if we have money available, and I don't want to speak out of turn here because I haven't looked at the numbers yet, but let's say that we do have enough money available to buy something that comes on the market, then I think we're already covered and not having to do a warrant article for this coming town meeting. But I think bigger picture, if we need to come up with a 5-year strategic plan, and I'm hearing that Dorian doesn't want to spend $10,000 to get that, then what's plan B to get a strategic plan together if we're not going to go to COG for that?
Yeah, I mean, we just spent, I think it was what, 16.2 for the HPP we did. I believe that was the number.
I mean,
we just spent all this money, and I understand we spent it to get this, and now we do need yet another step. I just wish that we had known we needed a 5-year strategic plan, because we possibly could have rolled it into that, and we didn't. So I don't know. To me, to ask the housing authority to give us yet another $10,000, that's a big ask. Why don't we go to COG, and why don't we tell them what we're thinking? Sarah, and I can call Courtney if you want, or if you wouldn't mind doing it. Tell them what we're looking at. I'm very hesitant to ask for another $10,000, and I don't know how everybody else on the board feels, but we need to get this done, and it's important, and that's why we're here.
So I think, to be clear, I just one more thing. I don't know how much this is going to cost.
Right.
I don't know how much this is going to cost. My assumption is that I am projecting that it would be over the $10,000 threshold. The reason why I bring that up is because if we are going to have to procure these services, it's supposed to be a non-biased procurement. So we don't talk to Roberta and Courtney anymore about it until we release our RFP to the contractors, to the public, to receive bids. We cannot continue to discuss the bid process with a particular vendor if it's going to go over $10,000. If we anticipate that it may go over that threshold, we need to stop and we need to write an RFP and we need to send it out publicly so that we can procure responses. And maybe they come in low, maybe they come in high. We don't know, what we'll receive for responses, but we need to, if we anticipate, and again, in my professional opinion, it may, exceed that threshold, then we should write an RFP for a 5-year strategic plan and see what we get back in response.
Can we call COG and ask them what their going rate is for a 5-year plan? And if they are going to be over $10,000, then go forward with the RFP. If it's not, then okay. But I'll tell you, I don't know what the reaction from the housing authority is going to be, but we're spending an awful lot of money. And
I think that perhaps
I'm very hesitant.
Perhaps the question to the housing authority in general is, does the housing authority want to write an RFP to develop a 5-year strategic plan, knowing that could be a significant cost? Because again, we're talking about a question of vendor procurement. We've passed the threshold of additional contracted services for ongoing technical assistance, and we have gotten into the threshold of vendor procurement for potential services to exceed a threshold where there's different procurement regulations.
How does anybody else feel on this?
I might be missing the point, but we started out by talking about getting permission on an extended period to be able to transfer these funds. I can see hiring them to get a template as to how to apply for that. I think it was mentioned a few minutes ago that we can just fill in the blanks year after year. If we would just apply for it, do we need a 5-year plan to do that? Because it seems to me a lot of these 5 and 10-year plans don't really necessarily come to fruition. I mean, can't we just apply for it?
Yeah, so I would just echo Chelsea's comment earlier. I mean, her point is, and I honestly don't, let me preface this by saying I don't really have that strong of feelings which way we go with it. But Chelsea's point is, we developed this housing production plan, and then the conclusion was to outline a handful of action items for us to take. Now that the housing production plan is done, we've identified our needs, we've identified our shortcomings. Now here are some strategies going forward with how we can help develop action steps we can take to help us facilitate the development of affordable housing down the road. So if one of those action items is develop a 5-year plan, do we intend to basically decide we don't want to take that action ever, or do we just don't want to take it right now and we just want to get a warrant article for the funds, and that's all we intend to do, or whether we want to go ahead and implement that action plan? And I'm not presuming the answer. I think that was Chelsea's point, is this is one of our action items. Do we want to go ahead and take it? I mean, this 5-year plan was one of the action items.
And just to play devil's advocate a little bit here, I think, there's, and again, I apologize that I didn't have the numbers ahead of this meeting. But once we know the numbers, if there's been money sitting out there for the last 10 years and it hasn't been acted upon, I think it's going to be difficult for us to go to town meeting and say, we have, $250,000, $300,000 that's been appropriated already, and now we're going to ask you for more, but we don't really know exactly how we're going to spend it.
Right.
I think that's going to be a challenging article to get through town meeting. I think we need to do the opposite. I think we need to take action, or at least show what the intent of the action will be before we go back and ask for more money.
I agree. So
That does make sense.
We have Lisa in the audience and she has her hand raised, so I am going to allow her to talk. Lisa, you are all set.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning, we
Lisa.
can, thank
Morning,
you.
Lisa.
Good morning, everyone. I miss sitting at the table with you. Well, I guess a virtual table. I just wanted to make one point, and I apologize. I was late coming into the meeting, but as I'm sitting here, we keep referencing the Housing Authority, and it's the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So I just want to clarify as we're talking about the funds and who's housing the funds right now, that we make sure that for anybody else that may watch, that there's no confusion going forward, that they go approach John or Alex and say, hey guys, you got this money and we want this money. So just for clarity, that's all. And I appreciate the discussion you guys are having. I think it's very, very needed. And I think you guys are making some great points. So again, thank you for all you do.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah,
All right, so what I'm getting from this is you all believe we should go forward with an RFP, or should we
Oh,
see
no,
what we get as for a price first, or an idea of a price from COG?
Yes.
So maybe make a motion that if the pricing from COG is under the $10,000 threshold, to go forward. If it's over, then to do an RFP and send it out and go to bid. Is that the consensus of the board? John, you're making a sad face, so what?
I think we have to. If it's over $10,000, it has to go.
I understand, but are you comfortable with that?
Well, why don't we take baby steps and just say, hey, let's make a vote that we'll go ahead and approach COG to give us a quote, and then we can get that quote and then reassess without making a conclusive determination now as to what our next step beyond that's going to be. Why don't we just ask them to quote us and then reconvene and see what we want to do with that?
Again, just because the cheapskate in me. So what's to prevent COG from watching this meeting and say, whoa, they're talking about spending up to $10,000 on this. My bid is 99999, you know? So that's just me. So, but yeah.
Valid point.
I'd reach out. I'd absolutely reach out to COG to see what they think it would be. And you know, what their kind of other fees for the same thing is roughly, and then go from there.
We can actually reach out today. I think that'll alleviate what you were saying, John, them watching this. They can, it's a public meeting. But if Sarah, I don't know what your schedule is.
I can reach out today.
Yeah.
Broach them today.
All right, so we're supposed to have a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen, who is the Affordable Housing Trust Fund heads. We're meeting with them on the 17th of November right now, tentatively. My question is, do you want to wait until then to possibly take a vote on going forward with an RFP, or do you want to save the step and vote if they're over $10,000 today? If COG is going to go over $10,000 for this, we need to do an RFP, we need to go forward. And I think we should save that step and make that determination now. If COG's this, that's great. We know we work well with them. We know they do a great job. We know we can trust them. They've got integrity. That's not a question. But because of the law, if it's $10,000 or more, we have to go to an RFP. I think we should just take that vote today and make it if this, then this, and not wait yet another month to meet and make another decision. The longer we wait, this is not the warrant article. If we need the 5-year plan, if you guys want to do the 5-year plan, then let's just do it and go forward with it instead of waiting, unless there's a reason not to. Chelsea?
I just have a process question. So regardless of how much it is, how do we authorize payment from a procurement perspective? Because
we'd have to go to the Housing Authority, the trust fund. We'd have to go. Once we get that, we'd have to go to the Board of Selectmen, the Housing Trust, and say, okay, here's what we've done. We voted, we've done this, we've gotten these. We're asking for you guys to fund this. They could say no, and then we just don't do it. I'm just trying to save the step.
It's really not. So even if we vote that we want to do it, that doesn't mean that it's going to happen, because they have to authorize.
Because they have to authorize that spending. So
got it.
And maybe I'm putting the cart before the horse, but to me, I would rather save the time, do the steps, get the work done. It doesn't cost us anything to put it out to bid. So if they say, absolutely not, we're not doing this, I mean, our hands are tied anyway if they're not going to do it. But I don't know. I hate wasting time and spinning my wheels. If we can just make it in one vote, if this, then this. And I don't know if Lisa's still in the audience, if she's got a perspective on the housing authority, on the trust.
Lisa, I am going to, yep, she's raised her hand again. Lisa?
I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but to me, I'd rather
Okay.
save the month time and not waste it.
Okay, thank you. So I did have my hand raised. So process wise, as with the housing plan, you guys put together something and came to the Affordable Housing Trust. I know, Dorian, you have a meeting with the selectmen potentially on the 17th, but I think you need to request a meeting with the Affordable Housing Trust, because at the Board of Selectmen's meeting, process wise, the Affordable Housing Trust can't speak. We can certainly set up a meeting in advance of the Board of Selectmen. And I think a lot of the things you're talking about here, you're going to want buy-in from the Affordable Housing Trust. And I know it's confusing because all 5 members of the Board of Selectmen also sit on the Affordable Housing Trust. So process-wise, similar to what you did with the housing plan, is put something together, come to the Affordable Housing Trust, see if they're in agreement, with the plan and the cost, and then the Affordable Housing Trust will authorize. And I believe you did that in advance of going out with an RFP, Sarah. Is that correct?
The approval for the funding.
Yep, for the funding source. Or did you do that after? Go ahead.
No, I think so. I came in sort of late in the process, kind of. So I came in and we were, going through the procurement process, with writing the RFP and getting it out there. I am assuming that those funds were already transferred. I mean, to your point in terms of process. Again, I was kind of like onboarding at the time. So,
yeah, so I think the process was, Dorian, you guys had came to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, if my memory is not disservicing me. I believe the process was you came and asked for up to $25,000. And then you did the RFP and it came back less than that.
Yeah, that really, yeah, definitely. Yes, Lisa, I think you're.
I think
absolutely
that
right.
is correct.
Like
So
I said,
okay.
I came in at the tail end of that, but it was definitely, the funds were already approved when we were doing the RFP. So thank
Yeah.
you.
well,
So-
we went to the Affordable Trust with the amount.
Up to.
Up to.
Right, you didn't have an amount because if you remember, we was up to $25,000, Dorian, and COG came in at what, 17 or?
Yep.
I think it was 16.2 for some
Okay.
reason.
Yep, whatever it was, you were authorized by the Affordable Housing Trust to spend up to $25,000. So it was done in advance.
Right. And so again, that I think that gets back to the point that I've been trying to make is that, really, again, this is supposed to be a non-biased procurement process. So the board determines how much money they may need to spend. Doesn't necessarily mean that they have to spend the whole pot, but may need to spend. If it's going to be over that 10,000 threshold, really the procurement process needs to start at that point, which means we have to develop an RFP and send it out, to 5 bidders and, at a minimum, and receive 3 responses. And so it should really be kind of like a public process for that procurement.
All right, so then we need a motion to approach the Affordable Housing Trust Fund for the purpose of paying for a 5-year plan for our HPP to implementation of our HPP up to, okay, guys, so we have no clue. So what do? We
Right.
go
Can I
up
offer
to,
one other suggestion?
Yes.
I'm sure other towns have done a 5-year plan. You should be able to go online somewhere and do some research and find out approximately a range of, what somebody may have done, and then just, add on an additional amount that you guys think is warranted.
I can't see this hitting $10,000. If they did the whole HPP for, I thought it was like 18. So let's say less than 18. I can't see just a 5-year plan costing more than than between $5,000 and $7,000.
And they've done a lot of legwork in the background and
Yeah.
the connection with the HPP. They already know the demographics and our housing needs and all that stuff. So it's some of the background stuff's already done.
Yeah, I agree.
So we could say up to 12.5, or we could say 15, knowing that we're hopefully not spending that much, but we can get this process going.
I would say 12,000 is perfect, and I don't think it will exceed that by any means.
I agree.
Now that
And-
we know that they could be listening to this, should we even be talking about numbers until
We have to, because we have to vote on it, Alex.
But
We have to vote on it.
does it make sense to at least suggest it and look at what other towns have already done and a price range for that before we vote on what the threshold?
Well, I think in terms of researching and finding out, that can be ongoing during like the RFP process in the background for us as a board to understand once those bids come in, which ones are, the most competitive, and most reasonable. And we're hoping that COG, since we've worked with them before, will come in, at a cost-effective price, but we can kind of measure that against some of the other bidders that we'll receive throughout this process.
But if you do your research and you find that it's $8,000 that people are actually spending, then you don't have to go out to bid.
Right.
Right, but
So I would rather.
we're covered with a request for up to, but not to
Yeah,
go over
but what I'm
12,000.
hearing is we like cost. So if you go out to bid, you don't have a choice on who you have to pick when the bids come back, right? You have to go with the lowest bidder. I
No.
assume?
No, not at
No,
all.
you don't.
No, not at all. Not at all. No, what you have to receive the bids and you have to weigh them, against one another. However, if a vendor does come in, a few $1,000s over, you write, they call it like a justification page, and you have to write a justification for any of your, what you procure, and you say, this particular bidder, has, reference to the town. They were more comfortable with them. We feel like that they can do a better job, and then you go with them. Just like, if last round of HPP, the bidder who came in higher had done the HPP prior. So the town could have chosen them and spent a little more money and said, we like the quality, they know the town, we appreciate what they've done and spend those funds.
Marianne, if I may, one
Yes,
more, just one more
absolutely.
point. So my suggestion would be to you to not wait to the RFP process to do a little bit of research, because knowing the makeup, especially of the Board of Selectmen, they tend to like to ask a lot of questions, and they're going to
Chelsea.
do the research. So we're very much process people. So I would hate for you to come and then somebody ask just what I just said to you, and have you done any research? What do you think it's going to be? So that's just a suggestion.
I guess I was thinking it would be concurrent. I didn't mean to sound dissuasive, just concurrent with, meeting with the Affordable Housing Trust to, maybe.
Can't we do the research at the same time that we've reached out to the Affordable Housing Trust? We've made the request. In the meantime, we're still doing our research. So then we go in front of you, or if you have questions, we have the answers already. And, we're not wasting time. We're trying to be proactive here. And
No,
I
Doreen,
understand
I think-
the process.
I'm sorry. I think that's the preferred path, honestly, to come forward with more of a complete package to make it easier and have all the information. So thank you. I'll shut up now. Thank you.
You don't have to be quiet. Okay. What does anybody want to do then? Chelsea?
I would rather do the research and then make a recommendation. But that's just because I know I'm going to be sitting on the other side of the table and I'm going to be asking a question. So
I know, you're the question asker.
I am.
I love it.
And so that's where that's a process that I would like to follow, especially where we kind of changed the direction that Sarah was going with adding the strategic plan. I am not as concerned about getting the warrant article done, because I'm just not convinced that we are ready for that yet until I see the numbers. So I do think between getting the numbers and then figuring out what we're looking for in a strategic plan, and compared to other towns, that's what I would do, but I'm only one person.
That makes sense to me too, for the record, just to chime in. I mean, I know we had this set up and we were planning, before this meeting started, we were planning one path that was sort of shorter and quicker and easier, but now we're talking about a bigger picture. And I tend to think that we'd be in a better position to approach that meeting with the Board of Selectmen if we have this fleshed out more. I think the meeting will be more productive.
Okay,
Agreed.
so, but before we meet with the Board of Selectmen, we are going to have to talk with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund group, which is the Board of Selectmen, plus Bill Bolin and myself. Right now, I believe we are still on the schedule for November the 17th with the Board of Selectmen. I'm not sure what time we'll be meeting with them. Would I like to try to reach out, Lisa? Hopefully you are still there. I see your little black square with your name. I would suggest we meet with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund prior to the Board of Selectmen's meeting. Like if they're starting at 6:30, start at 6, because I don't think it's going to be that long of a discussion. And have our research done by then, and then approach them, and we can call a meeting at the same time, so we can leave there, go to our own Zoom area, then we can make our motion, we can take our vote, and then we can move forward from there. Is everybody comfortable with doing that? So we have a few weeks, get the research done, have a meeting with, hopefully the Housing Authority won't mind meeting with us prior to that meeting, then break away, do our own thing and vote.
Hey, Lauren, can I just clarify in my mind? So I'm a little fuzzy on what we're going to be discussing with the Housing Trust Fund on the 17th and the Board of Selectmen. I mean, is it just kind of a general conversation to say, hey, how can we help streamline the funding process? Or is there a more specific agenda of items that we're planning? I guess I'm trying to evaluate how crucial this meeting is on the 17th.
We were going to be discussing the warrant article and bringing that forward. We had to meet with the Housing Authority first, and then we were going to meet with the Board of Selectmen, but we haven't set up the Housing Authority yet. But now we've kind of changed our path. We moved away from doing the warrant article because the funds may already be there. We just don't know what's what. So we need that research done. Now we want to move forward with a 5-year implementation plan. That's what we need to go forward with first and foremost, checking on the funds at the same time, and then pull it all together for the 17th. So we may not need a warrant article, but we need a 5-year plan. So we would be going to the Housing Authority Trust Fund asking, here's our plan. This is where we want to go. This is what we believe our next step is. Getting this process accomplished, hiring someone to do this work. This is what we believe with our research the cost is going to be. So we are asking you to grant up to, not to exceed,
So that
X amount of money. Yes,
we'll
that
need to ask for funding for the 5-year plan.
exactly, not the warrant article, unless for
Yeah.
some reason
Gotcha.
there's no money there that we believe
Right,
there
we're not
is.
ready to submit a warrant article.
Right,
so
but then- but we'll know
objectives
that.
changed. Yeah.
We're gonna know that going into the 17th. So reach out to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, meeting before the Board of Selectmen on the 17th. Implementation of the 5-year plan, and we will already know funding possibilities, where they are. If we need to include warrant article at that point, we will. But
And point of
I know there's a
clarification.
pot with money that's been approved already, because they mentioned it 2 years ago. It's still sitting there. So I don't know how much money's in it because they didn't give us an amount. So there's 2 pots or 2 buckets with housing money available. So I just don't know what CPC is doing.
Duran, can I ask a point of clarification? So are
Yes.
you, just so I understand, so are you looking to meet with the Affordable Housing Trust and then go to the Board of Selectmen's meeting? Are you now only looking to do one? Because if you meet with the Affordable Housing Trust, what are you going to go to the Board of Selectmen's meeting and discuss? Because you've already pretty much discussed it and got approval through Affordable Housing Trust. Am I missing a step?
Well, if we have to go the route of the warrant article, I guess we thought that we had to, that you guys were all on the Affordable Housing Trust. So I thought that we needed to discuss the warrant article and trying to get the warrant article to be an annual thing. So we were going to discuss that with the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, so it's two separate items. So the affordable,
But-
just so I'm clear, I'm sorry. So the Affordable Housing Trust is going to be regarding the 5-year plan. And you want to go on the Board of Selectmen's agenda afterwards to talk about a warrant article. Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, yeah, if we need the warrant article, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Somebody is at my door and it's my plumber. So hang on one second. But yeah, that's what I was thinking. So we need the Affordable Housing Trust Fund first, I think. So
so do you still need to go to the Board of Selectmen?
So I don't think so, because
Okay.
CPC would sponsor, like, we would have to do a CPC application. Well, you would ask the trust to do a CPC application.
Yes.
To get approved, to have them bring it to town meeting. So I actually don't think that the board is, we need to meet with the board.
Yeah, that makes sense to me too. We're not asking the Board of Selectmen for anything right now. We're just looking for funding from CPC to fund this
so
5-year.
sorry.
No. So I'm sorry. So we would be asking CPC if we wanted to do a warrant article to transfer money to the trust.
Oh, I thought
But
that
we
those
would
funds would
ask-
already be available right now. If we wanted to hire COG right now, maybe I'm totally
You would
misunderstanding.
ask the trust. You would ask the trust.
We'd ask the
Trust.
trust. We don't need any appropriations right now from town meeting
No.
for that, right? I mean, so,
Not for
yeah,
that.
so I guess
No,
it's
but I'm
unclear to
saying
me
we
what we
wanted
would
to
be asking the Board of Selectmen for at this point.
nothing.
We have to ask the trust for the money. The trust
Right.
pays for it.
Right.
Like we
And-
did with the HPP. We have to make and approach them with a letter asking them to fund this. We did the RFP for the HPP, so we had asked them up to, but not to exceed $25,000. They approved that, and then we went forward with the RFP. Sorry, I had to let my plumber in. He was banging on the door.
But Dorian, the question was, no, I think everyone agrees with that part. Then the question is, what reason do we have to meet with the Board of Selectmen then at that point? Because we're not really asking for any appropriations from the Board of Selectmen at this point, if this is our pathway.
Right. I agree. I don't think we need to meet with the Board of Selectmen.
Okay? I thought we did with the warrant article, so
No,
that
that
was
would
the
be-
discussion,
that would
but
be-
we're not.
So if we wanted to bring a warrant article to town meeting, the trust would have to fill out an application with CPC.
Okay.
And then CPC would bring the article to town meeting.
I think the confusion was that the Affordable Housing Trust Fund is the BOS.
I know.
Just a different chair, but it's the BOS, so.
But I think the pathway is, as I understand it, is we're not in a position right now. We're sort of cart horse thing. We're going to do the 5-year plan to put us in a position to seek a warrant article down the road. So we're not in a position to do a warrant article at this point.
No, not unless we find that we do need a warrant article, but that's why we have to get all this work done now, because there's a deadline to be able to do a warrant article, and there's a deadline with CPC, and we've missed that, but they haven't met, so I'm not really worried about that, but all right, so Lisa, we need to meet with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Would you like an official email, or will this do that we would like to meet with you on the 17th prior to the Board of Selectmen's meeting?
So I thank you very much. I think this would suffice. And I think if I in some way screwed this up, I think either Chelsea or yourself would certainly remind me and make sure that I got it done. So this is fine. Thank you.
Okay, so we will plan on meeting with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which is the BOS, folks, on the 17th of November. And I'm assuming that would be like at 6 p.m. prior to the Board of Selectmen's meeting.
Depending on how long, based on what information you have, and you guys could, Chelsea could certainly bring that back and let me know whether she thinks it'll be a 15-minute discussion or a half an hour, and based on that, because I assume you guys are going to meet one more time before then, or no?
I think we need to.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna have to.
Then, either you or Chelsea can make the request, Dorian, and whether to do it at 6 o'clock or 6:15 based on what you think it will be.
Okay. All right. Is everybody good with that? So we'll make the request. Well, we did make the request because Lisa's there and Chelsea's here. All right, so we don't need any motions or anything right now. Research wise, okay, Sarah, can you do some of the research? I can do some of the research. What would you like? What is easier for you? Again, I don't want to overload you and overburden you with stuff either.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can aggregate, what I already have. I sent an email to Roberta and Courtney just to ask them, if, the 10,000 threshold, does that make sense? And if they could give us a range of what people typically pay for this type of document, and then we'll kind of go from there.
And that doesn't give us any problem with reaching out to someone we're going to ask to bid on something, that there's no legal implication there?
I don't think so. I mean, I kept it really vague. I just said, on average is this type of, is this cost in the range, in the ballpark range of what's usually.
Black masks.
Okay. I just don't want to
Take one of the K&M.
get us into any trouble.
Right, of course.
Okay, so Chelsea, is that okay with you if Sarah and or I do the research? Because again, I don't want to overburden you.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I mean,
I'll deal
you're
with
so you're so awesome. I don't want to burn you out. At least not this year. I'll wait to do it next year.
wait for my
Okay.
second year.
All right, so we're gonna get the research. The research is gonna get to you guys. We'll disperse all that. Chelsea, you're gonna check on funding, find out what's in what bucket with Carla, get that to Sarah. Sarah, you're gonna disperse that to us as well. Okay, before I get to the next, choosing out a next meeting, I just wanted to bring something to your attention. So there was another group in 2018 that Freddie Gillespie had brought into the town. I believe they talked to the CPC group. It's the Massachusetts Housing Partnership, and they're extremely knowledgeable about affordable housing and what to do and how to accomplish it. I thought this would be a really good group to bring into our Zoom world, unless we can meet with them in person by January. I just thought this would be another good group, along with Habitat, to come and speak with us and just educate us about their process and what they've experienced and how they would handle things. Would everybody be up for that? Or to me, it just, the more education we have, the more groups we talk to, the more knowledge we have, the better we're going to be at getting what we want done. So I was going to reach out to this group and schedule them for maybe January. Is everybody good with that? There's no sense really until we iron out what we need with the 5-year plan and stuff, and hopefully that's set and done by December. But to at least start bringing groups, like if we could bring these guys in January, I want to bring in Habitat because we never got that done because of COVID. I want to bring them in and sit down and have a discussion with them as well. So if we brought these guys in January, maybe Habitat in February, again, these are groups we would possibly be working with to accomplish something. So I just kind of wanted to get a feel. Are you guys good with that?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So I'm gonna try to schedule those January and then Habitat for February. So I will work on that. We did the minutes.
I just got an email from Claire. She's in the audience, and she said that Stowe has a 5-year plan built into their HPP as well as Grafton, for reference. So who was ever doing the research, if they want to take a look at those. Thank you, Claire.
Did she want to talk? She can, I don't know. She doesn't have her hand raised, but I don't know.
Elisa does, though.
Lisa? Unmute, Lisa.
Sorry, I just never lowered my hand from before.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Sorry, I just noticed.
Lisa,
it.
just sit there. Don't leave. Just sit there, Lisa. Just sit there. Okay, next meeting. So we want to meet before the November 17th meeting. So, okay, here's my complication. I can't meet.
Because I'll be in
No.
Disney.
Exactly. 'Cause I don't care anymore. I'm done. I haven't been since February. I am very sad. I need some pixie dust and magic, and I'm going. So I'm gone the 4th to the 11th. So we can meet, and the 3rd is the election day. And I think we can meet Monday the 2nd. That's kind of tight.
How about that next week, 11, 12, 13?
Or
Later.
we can meet
Isn't that all before the 17th? Yeah, and you'll be
12th,
back.
13th, oh, I think we should meet Friday the 13th. Is everybody okay for Friday the 13th?
I'm okay.
I could do that.
Or
I can make anything work. You
or
just,
we can meet Monday the 16th.
Fridays are better for me than Mondays because
Okay.
of the drop off.
Is everybody good for
Yeah.
Friday the 13th at 8
That would be
a.m.?
great for me.
Yeah.
Friday
Yes.
the 13th.
Friday the 13th in
And no
2020,
wearing
what could
black.
go wrong?
And then we should have all our information, everything we need, 8 o'clock.
8
And then,
a.m.
hey, Dorian, can we, for that agenda, I know we had it on the agenda to talk about today, but can we set aside a block of time to talk about the downtown initiative on that meeting? I think that,
Oh,
that
yes.
process is starting to go down the road. And, my own personal view is I think we need to get a little bit more involved.
Actually, it is right here. We can still talk about that today if you want. It's on our, it's on our agenda.
I think people probably.
Yeah, I mean, we've had such a long meeting.
Yeah.
I know we were expecting a product from Judy last night, and I'm pretty sure that it was delivered. I have not seen it yet. I know that the selectmen are going to be dispersing it as soon as they.
Oh, is it going that fast?
Available.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going well. I thought the last meeting was a very productive meeting with planning, EDC, as well as Shopsy. So moving forward, what, again, I haven't seen it. I don't know what it looks like. I know it's going to be dispersed to all the committees, and absolutely your the input of this committee is valuable.
Okay,
Well,
Lisa,
Can I
Lisa
jump
has
in
something
here?
to say.
Sorry, I
She's
always have
she's
something
all
to
set.
say. Sorry, I always have something to
No,
say.
no, you're
Deborah.
all set.
So to just kind of piggyback on what John said, so the draft did come in yesterday. I know Julie, Claire and I are going to speak at some point today about our path to getting it out to everybody to have first round of comments. Planning board already has it on their agenda. The Board of Selectmen do, and I know EDC is discussing it on Friday. So it'll be distributed at some point through your chair today that she can forward the first draft out for comments to all of you. We would just ask that there's a comment matrix that all the comments come back in order to keep with the standard that Judy's looking to have. So, and obviously the sooner we could get comments, the better. I know you guys aren't meeting now till the 13th. But maybe Dorian, you could just you guys could potentially flow comments through your chair just to keep the process moving forward. Does that make sense, Dorian?
Yeah, so if you could get that to Sarah for us.
Today.
Sarah, if you can disperse that document to this board. I actually have no problem if my board members want to look at it, make comments, get those comments back to Sarah, because Sarah would be the one to disperse them back to the EDC, not me. So don't want to break open meeting law. So Sarah, if you could get the document
Yeah.
dispersed, and everybody else make
There you
your
go.
comments, if you guys can do it within like a week and
I
get
was gonna
everything
say a
back to
week,
Sarah, get them to, give yourself a week from getting the document and then getting everything to Sarah. So.
And you
that
can
would-
also-
Dorian, can I chime in on just a couple of macro comments on that? Because I guess, this is, so my takeaway from the meeting, with the joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen and the EDC and everyone else, is that they don't have any serious intention of putting affordable housing into this plan. And so, to the extent we all have comments about their zoning plan that does not include affordable housing. I don't know, in some sense, I don't know what the point is. My personal view is, if I can pontificate for 30 seconds, is that they were pretty dismissive about, Dorianne, you made a nice presentation on behalf of ShopC about why we need affordable housing. And, Judy Bear's response to you was, man, be careful what you ask for. You're not, you don't want to ask for affordable housing, right? And then I got up there and talked about 40R for 5 minutes. And the response was, nah, 40R is too small, next comment. So I don't think there's any serious intent of Judy Baird or anyone else to put affordable housing into this thing. So if we don't do anything else at this point, there's not going to be affordable housing as part of this downtown zoning initiative. And I personally think that would be a big loss for our committee, because there's, again, I think there's going to be 20, 30, 40 units of housing created as part of this project. And if we've missed out on the opportunity to use our leverage to try to get affordable housing into that, I think it will be a real missed opportunity. And again, just to pontificate for 15 more seconds, I really think that this project, this initiative is what this committee is really constituted for. It's not, we're not made up of 7 nobodies like Tom Biscool. We're deliberately constituted with somebody from the Board of Selectmen and the EDC and the Planning Board and the Master Planning Commission, so that our members who have a priority on facilitating the creation of affordable housing can go back to our respective boards and try to advocate to make those respective boards priority or a policy to create affordable housing. So, if nobody, Tom Biscoe, says, hey, we want, I think this plan should have affordable housing, it's just a lost voice in the wind. But if Lisa Bracchio on behalf of the Board of Selectmen says, I think this plan should have an affordability component, and Chelsea Malinowski says, I also think there should be affordable housing, and she's a Board of Selectmen member, and John Wood on the EDC says, I think there should be affordable housing, and Jesse Stein on behalf of the Planning Board says, I think there should be affordable housing, then it becomes a drumbeat. That's why we're constituted the way we are. And I just think if we sit back and say nothing at this point, the project's just going to go forward. There's not going to be an affordable housing component, and we'll just take off our ShopC hat and look forward to having a few nice coffee shops and some housing downtown. So I personally think we need to get more. If we want there to be affordable housing as part of that plan, we need to get more concrete with a plan to exercise our influence over the process.
Dorian, can I just say one thing? Because I actually have a draft. I'm probably the only fortunate one that has a copy of the draft up on her computer. And there is something written in, Tom. Hold on 2 seconds. I just got to go back to.
I agree, Tom. I agree with what, your assessment.
And you have more, and there's more support on the EDC, by the way, for the affordable housing, you think, Tom?
Is there?
Yes.
That's great to hear.
And I think,
absolutely. The problem is, I think it was because when Judy was talking, it's going to be very small scale. I don't, if there's 40 units available, yeah. But I think it's going to be smaller scale than you think. I don't think.
For housing?
I hope, yeah. I'd love to say it's going to make 40 units of housing downtown. But unfortunately for downtown, there's very limited land. And what's there?
But they're talking about going up Newton Street and Park Avenue. There's plenty of room back in those areas again, it's not all going to happen right now. It's
that's if they go. We've discussed it a little bit. We haven't figured out whether it's going to be extended down to Newton Street or any of that stuff yet, because that might be kicking a can of worms that we may not want to get into. Maybe we do. I can't speak on behalf of my committee. But
you don't own the property down Newton Street.
What's that?
You don't own the property all the way down Newton Street.
No. Extending the zone.
Future development to come on board and buy the property so they can do projects. That's the ownership of the property is almost irrelevant. It's just
the zoning that goes around it. So the people that own the property, if they sell, they could either sell to somebody that wants to put a mixed use in there, or somebody that just wants to keep the home as a home. From that area from Peter Bemis's property down in Newton Street. But again, it's been discussed. At one of our meetings, I thought people were kind of looking towards it, and other people like, do we want to get that down or move that down the road? That's a future discussion.
But isn't that another opportunity for Shopsy to weigh in on that? If
Exactly, that's
EDC wants to scale down the housing, shouldn't we be getting involved in the conversation saying, no, don't scale down the housing, expand the housing?
It's not scaling down the housing, it's scaling down the area, the
overall
zoning.
project. But I think it's part of the same thing. Sorry, go ahead.
Dorian, can I jump in at some point?
Go ahead, Lisa.
So currently in the draft that you're going to be receiving a copy of today, there is a section that says affordable housing. It's one paragraph. I'll read it to you. In any multifamily or mixed-use building with 8 or more units, at least 12.5% of the units shall be affordable housing that is eligible for the Chapter 40B subsidized housing inventory in accordance with the Chapter 40B regulations and guidelines of the Mass Department of Housing and Community Development. In consultation with the Southborough Housing Opportunity Partnership Committee, SHOPSI, the Planning Board may adopt a guidance document interpreting the 40B guidelines as they apply to development under this section. Because that's in there, my suggestion to you would be, your comments would be, you want to expand the affordable housing as it's currently written, and you want to incorporate something else. I mean, all these comments will flow through. The Board of Selectmen will be able to see these as well. I mean, this is your opportunity to make your voice known.
Yeah, good. No, that's a great start, Lisa. I honestly came away from that meeting thinking there's going to be no affordable housing. So I'm really encouraged the fact that they have that component. And now it's up to us to just kind of try to goose that a little bit more.
Absolutely, Tom. So and again, that just so you know, that is what's currently in there. You'll have a draft of it today. So I would hope that your comments would push for a little bit more than that.
Yeah, great. Sounds like Chelsea has to drop, so maybe that's a good ending point.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you.
So if we make comments, we look at the plan and we make comments, Lisa, stay on here. Then Sarah will take those and pull them all together and get them back to the EDC. So our voice will be getting heard. Or are you suggesting, Tom, that you would like to have a meeting?
Well, I mean, I think we should probably collectively get, this, what I just learned is more than I learned before this meeting. I honestly came away thinking that this plan was going to end up having no affordable housing component. And now I know that there is an affordability.
So that's a kind of a standard language. So I think that in terms of, to your point, Tom, I think that that's still going to have to be pushed a little bit, because you'd be hard pressed to find 8 units, a parcel that's suitable for 8 units in the downtown as it sits right now in terms of its geographic outline. So that clause being in there sounds nice.
In practical reality, it may not be feasible. So I think that's what our committee should be focusing on is taking that and then building from that as what are comments on that? That's a great comment. It sounds good, but in practical reality, it's never going to actually create affordable housing. So I think that's what we should be focusing on.
As it exists currently, it's not going to happen. So,
well, Tom, would you like to sit down with the EDC?
We're meeting tomorrow, Tom, at 9.
Hey.
If you're available.
There's your
at 9 in the morning.
Yeah, because my committee hasn't seen the draft yet, so we're getting it today, and we're going to take a look at it and discuss it a little bit tomorrow. So if you want to chime in,
I'd just like to listen, because I mean this is as new to me as it is to anyone else. Now we have to noodle it over and figure out what the practicalities of that and everything else are. But I'd love to sit in on the meeting, just kind of hear what the EDC's discussion is on that, and
and Tom, also the Board of Selectmen are discussing it on the 27th. They're discussing the draft as well. It's on the agenda for the 27th.
And planning has it on their agenda as
Correct.
well.
November 2nd is planning. So you have plenty of opportunity to hear what everybody else is thinking, and also to certainly chime in. You have an opportunity to let each board know that, you as a member of SHOPSI want to see that expanded, that section of the bylaw.
Yeah, great. I'll attend both those meetings.
So
I have to, never mind.
You have to leave too?
I do. I'm getting a
Okay,
call
so
right
we have
this
to end the
second.
meeting because we don't
We
have
have
a
to end
quorum.
the meeting then.
Yeah, we
Sorry.
have to end the meeting, we don't have a quorum.
One.
All right, so I'm going to adjourn our meeting, and we will continue this discussion going forward to our next meeting on November 13th? Yes, Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th, 8 a.m.
Okay, and Tom, we'll add this to discussion on the next agenda too. All right, so we
That
can
sounds great.
continue. And
Bye,
I'll pay
everybody.
attention to both of those other meetings. So, John, you're going to see us both.
Okay.
Alex,
Alrighty.
everybody, thank you so much.
Wait,
Well,
I
thanks,
just
everyone.
need a motion
Do
to
we need
We
adjourn.
have
I
Motion
did.
adjourned.
I did. I adjourned.
seconded.
Who made
A
it?
motion. Okay, I made the motion. It's seconded. All in favor, Alex?
He said aye.
Aye.
Hands left.
Tom, John,
Aye.
Dorian,